All right, so welcome to this lecture number 15 of ME303 heat transfer. So we've been talking about heat conduction lately, and I've been discussing with you about 1D and 2D heat conduction. But till now, we have assumed that heat it's a steady state situation. Okay, so we always assume that things have become steady. We've given the system a very long time to reach a steady state where nothing changes with time. Okay, but in reality, you may have situations. I mean, whenever you change or whenever you start something or stop something, you see that the temperature changes with time. Okay, and similarly, the rate at which heat flows will change with time. A very basic example is, for example, you have, let's say, you are forging steel and you have a hot bar, and you take it out and let it cool in air, or you quench it. So you just put it in cold water and you try to cool it. So what happens is, in this example of this hot bar, you have heat which gets convected out from both directions. Let's say this is a long bar. Well, let's not use the arrows. Let's say this bar is very long in this direction. So from the two sides, you have some heat getting convected out, and it may also radiate out. So you may have Q radiation as well. Sorry. So heat's gonna and from inside the bar, what you will see is that the heat is conducting out from the bar. So the bar is initially hot, and then heat conducts out from inside the bar, and then it convects and radiates out from the surface. That is exactly what you see. And what you will see is, as you leave this bar in cold water, or you leave it in the ambient temperature, it will slowly cool down. So the temperature of this bar will change as a function of time. Okay, so now you don't have steady state anymore. Your temperature will change with time, and this behavior is called unsteady or transient heat conduction. Okay, so heat is getting conducted out still from the body, and so this process of heat conduction is called unsteady or we also call it transient. Okay, so we are now complexifying the situation a bit further, where we started with a steady state situation, but now we're going to discuss unsteady situations as well. Okay, so that's going to be the topic of discussion for the next 2 or 3 lectures. Now, as you already may have guessed, that it's important to study this unsteady or transient heat conduction, and I mean, one of the reasons is, for example, you may want to control how, for example, in this quenching, you already know from your material sciences course that the temperature time history affects the material properties. If you cool it quickly, or you annihilate, you quench it, or you annihilate slowly, so that you let the grains grow and so on. So the temperature time history does affect the material property. So you want to control that as engineer. Okay, so you would want to control this. You may want to control this temperature time history, and this basically is one of the motivations behind studying this mathematically, and then understanding how what different things we can do to control this temperature time history of the different bodies. Okay, again, in this discussion on unsteady or transient heat conduction, we'll go in steps. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Is the font size good enough for you to see it clearly on your device?
Yes, sir.
Okay, in case you have any problems with the font size, etc., let me know. So we'll go in steps. So the first step, we will assume that we will assume an infinite thermal conductivity of the material. So what that means is this bar that you have that I just talked about, well, this very long bar, if the thermal conductivity is infinite, what that means is the resistance, the conductive resistance is 0. So what that means is if you have a 0 resistance, then there is no potential difference inside the material. So the complete material is at the same temperature. We'll call it T throughout. So temperature is only a function of time now. It is not a function of space, because the conductivity is infinite. Okay, so that's the first step. Of course, I mean, it may not be true that all the materials will have this infinite conductivity. In fact, no material has an infinite conductivity, but we'll see that in certain situations we can assume that the thermal conductivity is almost infinite, or is large enough for us to consider um, the infinite conductivity approximation. And this this has got a name. It's called the lumped capacitance model. Okay, so I'll tell you why it is called a lumped capacitance model, but I just thought I'll give you the name. So this is the first step, and then we'll complexify the situation, and the second step will be where the conduction inside the body is also important. So there's conduction happening inside the body, we have to study that, and there is convection on boundaries. Okay, so in this case, what that means is your temperature is going to be a function of x and t. I mean, for simplicity, we'll assume that it's a 1D space situation. So we'll not assume temperature a function of x, y, and z. That will again make things quite complicated mathematically. But we'll assume that a temperature is a function of only one space direction. So this is another complicacy that we have added by taking one more independent variable, that is x. And then the third step is where our space dimension is infinite. So earlier, till now, we've been assuming that the thickness of the bodies in which the heat is conducting is finite, but we'll assume that in fact this is called the semi-infinite analysis. An example can be, let's say you have the surface of the earth. Okay, so this is your earth's surface, and then you have some soil below it. So the soil, for example, let's say you had a very warm day, and then suddenly it became very cold. So when the day was warm for a very long time, so let's say that the complete temperature of the soil became some T warm. Now what happened was the night was very cold. So suddenly, all of a sudden, it happened. It happens a lot in high altitudes, that because of a lot of clear sunny day, it becomes very warm. But all of a sudden, as the sun sets, the temperature suddenly drops. So let's say there's a step change in temperature, and then well, almost a step change, and you see that temperature on the surface becomes very cold. Okay, so what I'm saying is that temperature at so it's a function of x and t now. So temperature at x equal to 0, so I'll call this x equal to 0, the surface, and the x increases as you go down. So temperature at x equal to 0, and for all times is t cold. Okay, and temperature at all x's at t equal to 0 was t warm. So I'll remove this now. So what that means is, if you see this, what this means is that when you started the analysis, the whole soil mass was at temperature T warm. But now what you have done is on the top, you have suddenly applied a boundary condition where the surface has become very cold. So then you will analyze what will be the value of T as a function of x and t. So as you go down, and you fix some point in space, let's say. So what is the temperature at that point as a function of time? And you will do it for all different spatial positions. And this is again very important because you would want to see what the temperature at some depth, because for example you have to it's a very common thing we do when we install pipelines in cold areas. So the surface outside it becomes very cold, but what you see is that it takes a long time. There's a time delay between the top surface becoming cold and that temperature or the temperature effect percolating down some depth. So there are some points where it actually stays warm for a very long time until it becomes morning again and becomes sunny again. So we have to decide on that depth where the temperature does not fall. I mean, even though the surface temperature may fall below minus 40 degrees, but the temperature at certain depth will still stay above 0 degrees. So then the water will not freeze in the pipes, because water freezing in the pipes can be very problematic for of course it stops the flow also, it can also result in cracking of the pipes. Okay, so this is one example. You can approximate many engineering analysis using semi-infinite analysis. So that's the third step in this discussion on unsteady heat conduction. Okay, so that was a summary of this discussion that we'll be having in the next few lectures. Any questions on this? So there's no question, then we'll start with the first analysis. All right, so this lumped capacitance analysis, I mean, let's take an example now. So you have, let's say the same, well, you have some hot steel body that you have been forging, and now you want to quench it. Okay, you want to suddenly cool it. You want to cool it as quickly as possible. So what you do is, let's make it a bit small. Okay, what you do is you dip it in some cold water, and when you do it, you will see that the temperature of the body will go down. And as I said in the first analysis, we'll assume that it has infinite conductivity. So if that is the case, then the temperature is only a function of time. The spatial dependence is gone because there is no potential difference between any 2 points inside the solid body. Okay. Okay. Now again, it may be questionable whether we can assume this k to be infinite or whether we can neglect the spatial dependence of temperature, but we'll address that later. For now, we have assumed this, and when we solve problems, we will check, and the second step will actually address the condition where the k infinite k may not be applicable, or how to figure out if you can assume this to be true or not. Anyways, assuming that this is true, that infinite k is there, so we get t only as a function of time. Now remember that the heat conduction equation we derived was derived assuming that there is some temperature gradient across the surface, because but if you assume that there is no temperature distribution in the body, then you cannot apply heat conduction equation, because that's actually that was developed for a mass in which some heat enters and some heat leaves. So there is no point applying conduction equation. But what we can do is we can apply our simple energy balance that we discussed in the first few lectures. So in this case, what is happening is for this solid that we have assumed, there is some energy, that is rate of energy, that is stored, and there is some energy that is leaving as Q convection. And I mean, of course, the energy stored dot the rate at which the watts of and the watts that are leaving is the same as the watts that are convecting out. In this case, the energy stored dot is negative. The body is cooling down in this example. It could be the other way around as well, but right now I'm assuming that the body is cooling down. So what that means is, that energy stored, again, it's the internal energy we're talking about, the sensible energy. So this is mc dt by d time. That's the energy. This d temperature is negative because the body is cooling down, and then this is equal to Q convection. Let's do a minus, so that becomes positive, and then the Q convection is H times the A surface. So we'll call the area as A surface. That's the surface area times the temperature of the body, which is a function of time, minus the T infinity. So we'll assume that the temperature of this liquid bath is T infinity, and we have assumed that the heat transfer coefficient is H. So we'll call it T infinity comma H, and we put these two arrows to denote that there is convection happening outside the body. Okay, so this is simply our energy balance equation, and we'll be using that to derive the, ultimately remember we have to solve for temperature as a function of time. So once we get that, we have the complete temperature time history of the solid. Okay, so in this case, what we do is, to simplify, we define theta as the excess temperature. So we use and when we do that, what we get is minus mc d theta by dt. Okay, so now we'll solve for theta. So this becomes d theta upon theta, sorry. And on the then we have m. So m can be written as density times the volume. So this becomes rho vc divided by h surface area. And then we have an integral. On the right hand side, we have a minus dt and integral. Okay, and this starts at t equal to 0, and it goes till some arbitrary time t. And again, theta starts from theta initial. So remember that initially the body, we have to know how hot the body is initially. Okay, so we'll call the temperature, that's the initial condition that has to be known. So temperature at t equal to 0 was T initial. Okay, so that means theta initial, well, in this case, theta initial is, since theta is defined as t minus t infinity, at t equal to 0, this becomes t initial minus t infinity. Okay, and this again goes from theta initial to some theta, which is a function of time. There's nothing complicated with this differential equation. So when we solve this, all right, so then I can now do now write this as ln theta divided by theta I, and this is equal to minus t, well, so this when I take the exponential on both sides, this becomes theta upon theta I, and this is equal to e to the power of minus HAS upon rho Vc times t. All right, so now remember, if you recall, this is very similar to what you used to get when you used to discharge a capacitor. Okay, so if you had this if you had a capacitor and then you had a resistor, and if you remember, you had a switch, and if you close this switch at t equal to 0, then what happens is the resistance is going to if there was some potential difference across the resistance, then it would discharge, and the discharge equation is very similar to what we have here. Okay, that is the reason you call it a lumped capacitance model, because its behavior is very similar to a capacitor discharging. Okay, so this one, if you again remember that you used to have a time constant. Okay, so this theta upon theta I can be written as e to the power of minus t by tau. Okay, so this tau is the time constant. In this case, my tau is rho Vc upon HAS. Okay, so this is your so what we see is that if you quench this body, if you put this the metallic body which is hot into cold liquid, then the temperature is gonna go down exponentially. So if I try to plot this, my theta as a function of time, and what I see is that it starts from theta I, and then it exponentially goes down, and at infinity it's an asymptote at t equal to 0 at theta equal to 0, and then what you see is that my time constant is that value for which this has dropped to 0.3 0.37 of the initial value. Okay, right, so 0.37 of my theta I. Is that clear? In fact, if I remember my analogy again, then in an RC circuit, where you had your C and R as given here, then you used to have your theta, well, your time constant was R times C. Okay? In your um, your capacitance discharging time constant was R times C. So let us see what our time constant is. So our time constant is rho Vc upon HAC, sorry, AS, the surface area. So you can see that this 1 by HA is your thermal resistance corresponding to convection from the surface, and rho Vc, where be careful, this C that we have is, should I call it CV? Okay, so that will be easier. So that's your heat capacity. Rho Vc is the capacity, it's the capacitance. So the more the mass, the more the density times volume, the more material is there, so the more it can store. The more CV by definition, then the more it can store per unit change in temperature. So you can see that the rho Vc is the capacity, or analogous to the capacitance of the electrical circuit. Okay, so it reinforces the idea that the mathematical ideas we develop in one field in engineering can be very useful in the other one. So we shouldn't neglect something just because it is not relevant to us, because we never know when those ideas can be very useful to us sometime later. Okay, so in heat transfer, we rigorously use the ideas of electrical circuits. But again, you will see that in many fields of engineering, these ideas are used very often. Okay, so now, so that means you have the solution for the temperature. So you have the solution for theta, so that is equal to T minus T infinity. So you can add, your theta was T minus T infinity. So you can add T infinity to theta and you get the value of temperature as a function of time. So once we have the temperature, then we can find anything else we require. So in this case, you can find the rate at which the heat leaves. In fact, in many cases, since the energy is leaving constantly, we try to figure out how much energy has left. Sometimes you want to calculate the joules. Okay, if after, so at when you reach some time, you would want to know, let's for example in 3 seconds or 4 seconds, how much energy has been released from the solid, so that you can calculate how quickly it will cool down, or how much energy will it lose, or how you can control that energy transfer. So you would want to calculate the joules, that is, we'll use capital Q here, which is nothing but the integral of Q, which is the rate of heat transfer, times dt in some time t. So to calculate that, now Q again, as you know, is H times the surface area AS times your T minus T infinity, which is theta as a function of time, times dt. And since we already know what theta is, so theta is theta I times e to the power of minus t upon tau. So when I do this integral, sorry, okay, and this then we have the limits, which are from 0 to t. So if I put t, so I get e to the power of minus t by tau. And if I put t equal to 0, the lower limit, then I get e to the power 0, which is 1. So this is minus 1. Yes, I can absorb the negative sign. So I get h as theta I, and then tau again, remember it was rho v c, well, we called it cv divided by h as. Then we have 1 minus e to the power of minus t upon tau. This finally becomes h and as cancels, so we have theta I times rho v cv times 1 minus e to the power of minus t upon tau. Okay, so that's the amount of joules that has left the body and for a given time. So this is a function of time. Okay, so if I put t equal to 0 here in the final expression, so what I see is e to the power 0 is 1, so this is 0. So that means at t equal to 0, no energy has left, which is true. And if you put t tending to infinity, then e to the power of minus infinity is 0. So that means this is equal to the maximum value, which is rho vc times theta I. All right. So this was our discussion on the first step in this analysis on transient heat conduction, which is assuming that the K or the thermal conductivity is infinite, or assuming that there is no the spatial dependence of temperature. There's a comment that we could have done mc dt. You mean, so Abhishek, do you mean that we could have written rho v equal to m?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's okay. So we are writing mass as density times volume, because in most cases.
No, I'm saying like we didn't have to do the integration. The energy change will be the internal energy change equal to the heat that is escaping will be equal to the internal energy change. So we could have written
Right. We could have done that
second.
and integrated. Yes,
So,
right. But we have to integrate because it's not a constant. It's changing with time. Fine. Okay. So let's move ahead. Let's check under what conditions can we assume that this um, spatial independence is valid. Okay. Because it may happen that we may assume a lumped capacitance model, but that may not be the correct thing to do. Okay, so then we'll call it step 2, which is I would say rather checking for spatial dependence. That is t a function of both x and t, or just time? Okay, so again, let's take an example. Let's take an example of a bar. Okay, so let's take an example of a bar where we have, again, let's assume that this was quenched, and in this case, let's assume that you know the temperature on the left hand side, which we'll call T S1, and on the right hand side you don't know the temperature, but what you know is that you have convection happening on the right boundary where the temperature is T infinity. Okay, we have been doing this. So what we assume here is that I mean, we're trying to figure out is conduction dominating as compared to convection. So earlier we assumed that the conductive resistance was 0, but in reality that may not steady state. And in that steady state, what you have is you have one resistance. The first one is because of conduction, and the second one is because of convection. And the temperature on the right is T infinity, and the temperature on the left is TS1. So temperature on the right side of this bar is TS2. So we do not know TS2, but we do know TS1 and T infinity. Okay, so in this case, what we see is when the system has reached steady state. What I'm saying is, well, let's do it here only. So at steady state, at steady state, we have the heat flow because of conduction inside the body is the same as the heat convecting out from the surface of the body. And in this case, it's only the right surface that allows the heat to convect out. Okay, although I'm doing the discussion for steady state, but later you will see that we'll use the idea for a transient situation as well. Okay, so Q conduction is equal to Q convection, and using our idea of thermal resistance, we know that current is the potential difference upon R. The potential difference for conduction is TS1 minus TS2, and the resistance is L by Ka. Okay, so this divided by L by K, so this we get Ka upon L. Okay, similarly for convection, the temperature difference or the potential difference is Ts2 minus T infinity. So I'm assuming that the body is hot on the left hand side, and then the resistance is 1 by HA. So I divide it, so I get an H times A in the numerator. Okay, so it may happen that well, let's take the ratio of Ts1 minus Ts2 divided by Ts2 minus T infinity, and this becomes HA L upon K. So A cancels out, this becomes HL upon K. Right? So now you see that what we are discussing here, what we are seeing here is the ratio of the temperature difference inside the solid to the temperature difference between the solid surface and the infinity temperature. Now it could happen that the temperature Ts1 minus Ts2 is almost negligible as compared to Ts2 minus T infinity. So that situation would be a situation where you have the temperature, this is your Ts2, and then your T infinity, let's say, is somewhere here. Okay, so the vertical positioning here decides the value, and then this value suddenly drops. Okay, then another condition could be where your Ts2 minus T infinity was something like this, red one. So there is a very large change in the temperature inside the body, and then there's not much of a change when it goes out. And there could be an intermediate situation where your temperature drop inside the body is almost similar to what you get for convection. Okay, so now it's not just a matter of infinite conductivity. it's a matter of the ratio of the temperature drop inside the solid to the temperature drop between the right hand side surface of the solid to the T infinity. Okay, so potential difference for conduction and potential difference for convection. It's that ratio that matters, not just the absolute value of Ts1 minus T infinity. Okay. So what that means is this quantity that we have found out, HL by K. So if this quantity HL by K is extremely small, that means we are in this blue situation. So if very small, if it's much less than 1, then this implies that well, I'll use the blue color, that conduction can be neglected. Okay, so it's as if there's no temperature change inside the body. So that means you can assume that T is only a function of time. But if that is not the case, so then this implies that T is a function of space and time both. So we have to we cannot assume a lumped capacitance model. So that means that the lumped capacitance model cannot be used. All right. Is that clear? Okay, so let's recall this H is the convection heat transfer coefficient between the solid surface and the fluid around it. This L is the length of the bar, or I mean, we assumed a bar, but if you had some other body, then L is, we sometimes use a characteristic length. We have H times Lc by K. Okay, so H is the heat transfer coefficient between solid and fluid. Lc is a characteristic length, which you could assume that if you have some temperature difference between two ends of a body, you could take that length as a characteristic length, and K is the thermal conductivity of the solid. And this is a very important quantity. In fact, it has a name. It's called the Biot number. Okay, the T is silent here. It's called the Biot number. Okay, so if your Biot number is very small, then you can assume lumped capacitance model. But if that is not the case, then you must do a spatial analysis as well, which we'll discuss in tomorrow's lecture. So I'll stop here, and if you have any questions, then you can ask.